love the vibes, the laughs, and the real talk? Then you're one of us. Don't just listen, belong. Join the Nationwide 90 FM Family Club on Patreon.
Path beneficiaries, the August payment cycle is here and ready for collection. Post offices and payment agencies will deliver payments based on last names up to September 1, 2026. Be sure to check the Weekend Star on August 21st to find out when you should collect. If you miss your date, you must collect on September 2 or 3, 2026. For more information, call Path at 876-922-8000-13 or visit the ministry's website at www.mlss.gov.jm. Path, advancing your family, developing Jamaica. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the People's Ministry, leaving no one behind.
Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 7 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come with me. Let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 7 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Those oldies but goodies reminds me of you.
The news cycle doesn't end on Friday. It needs perspective. That's why every Sunday at midday, Nationwide 90 FM presents The Week That Was. A clear, informed review of the top stories that shaped the past week, what really mattered and what lies ahead. No noise, no theatrics, just analysis, context, and clarity. The Week That Was. Sundays at 12 p.m. Understand the news before the week begins. Only on Nationwide 90 FM, a new revolution in media.
It's 2 minutes after 12 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Nationwide. I was about to say Nationwide at 5, but no, it's the week that was here on Nationwide 90 FM. And of course, this is the weekend news and current affairs program. This is where we review the major stories that shaped the past week, and we take an informed look at what lies ahead. If you want to understand the news, not just consume it, then certainly this is the program for you. I'm your host, Saeed Bernard, and joining me today to bring analysis of the major stories of the past week, I have with me veteran journalist, the man himself, Durant Pate.
Good day, Saeed.
Yeah, good day, Durant. Thank you so much for joining me as usual. And economic consultant, research and social commentator, Janelle McEwan. Well, matters of water, or the lack thereof, some say, the weather, economy and security dominated last week's news cycle. And these are our top stories.
The Status of Forces Agreement, SOFA, signed between the Jamaican and U.S. governments, is number 3 on our list this week. SOFA, announced in a joint media statement on Thursday, formalizes the terms governing the presence of U.S. military personnel in Jamaica conducting mutually agreed activities. These include training exercises and joint operations. Both governments say the agreement reaffirms their commitment to a strong security partnership and advancing mutual interests. This includes combating criminal groups and narco-terrorists engaged in the trafficking of people, weapons, and drugs. Hurricane Melissa's continued impact on the Jamaican economy is our second top story this week. The Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, on Tuesday reported that the lingering effects of Melissa have led to a 2.9% contraction in the economy in the April to June quarter. PIOJ Director General Dr. Wayne Henry outlined the numbers on Tuesday.
We are reporting that the Jamaican economy
recording an estimated contraction of 2.9% compared with the corresponding quarter, April to June 2025. The outturn for the review quarter largely reflected the continued downturn in most industries due to the lingering impact of Hurricane Melissa.
But Dr. Henry notes that the country is showing early signs of returning to growth.
For fiscal year 2026-27, the PIOJ's projection is for real GDP growth within the range of 1% to 3%.
The PIOJ's review was echoed by the new governor of the Bank of Jamaica, Dr. Brian Langren, on Thursday.
Jamaica's economy continues to recover from Hurricane Melissa. But that recovery remains uneven, and is taking place against a highly uncertain global backdrop. For financial year 2026-27, the bank anticipates real GDP growth in the range of 1 to 3%. Growth is expected to remain within this range for the following 2 financial years before normalizing to 1 to 2% over the medium term.
And the top story this week is the heat and the associated water woes. On Tuesday, the country was warned to brace as the ongoing drought worsens even as it gets hotter. Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change Matthew Samuda says the next 3 weeks are not looking good.
The projections and forecasts from the Met Service do not suggest any rainfall of consequence in Jamaica over the next 3 weeks. And that is incredibly unusual. And it is largely because of the El Nino phenomenon which we're experiencing. And we have to remember, Jamaica has 2 periods of intense rainfall, usually in May, and then towards the end of August, going through September and October. And that carries us through the years. And the reality is over the last 3 months, we've had significantly lower rainfall against our 30-year average. So May, June, July, which is usually a period of some moisture. None, really, in most of the island.
And water levels at the 2 major facilities which serve Kingston and St. Andrew are both below 50% of their capacity. Minister Samuda outlined that river sources for the reservoirs are drying up.
The Yalos pipeline laid in the 1980s is the primary source of raw water to the Mona Reservoir. The Wag water out of St. Mary is the primary source of water to the Hermitage Dam, and the northeasterly rains that come out of Portland and the hills function to fill the streams that flow into the Hope treatment plant a little below UTEC. Now, we have one other set of springs that we extract from very heavily, which is the Tullow Springs. We're also starting to see reduction on the output from the Tullow Springs because they haven't been recharged with any rainfall over the last 4 months. So your primary sources for your largest population center are simply running dry at this stage.
And the effects of the El Nino risk have pushed the Panama Canal to cut the number of ships passing through starting September 3. Under the new measure, the canal will limit daily transits to 34 vessels and reduce the number to 32 as of September 15. The canal handles 5% of global maritime trade and about 40% of U.S. container traffic.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the top stories coming out of last week, the status of forces agreements between the governments of Jamaica and the United States. Inflation, we heard there from the new Bank of Jamaica governor, and topping the news cycle for the last week is El Nino, the drought, and its effect on Jamaica. Durant, of course, do you agree?
I don't have a problem with the first 3. But I have a problem in the position.
All right.
I think that the economy is more important. It's pressure. We have been hearing about the problems with water, the drought. We heard from the minister 3 weeks ago when he announced that he will be implementing
prohibition orders.
Yes. So not new, but an update. But for me, the economy is more important.
So you put BOJ at 1?
I put, well, not BOJ, both BOJ, PIOJ, the update on the economy.
Very well. Janil is there? You have Janil joining
yes,
us.
I am.
Good. Your views on the top stories of the week, generally speaking?
Yeah, they are solid picks, and given that, for one, PIOJ and BOJ update is up. But most important, given that we have stabilizing income would be me the number one pick. The other picks are also great as relates to the water space, something that we have to look at. And in the changes are that because of the drought, what happened in the Panama Canal, that may also contribute to our inflation. So those are the two topics. And then so also indeed another.
Yeah, your sound seems to be tripping in and out, so I'm going to ask you to speak a bit louder in the mic. Well, I want to ask you this, Janelle, specifically, because 2 consecutive quarters of year-on-year contraction, and the POJ says this is not a recession. I don't understand anything what that means. Could you explain for me? What is the distinction? And in explaining the distinction, tell regular people like Durant and myself, does this make any difference to people struggling?
Yes, so we would have understood what happened. So we have successive contraction in the economy. That in itself would be considered a recession in technical terms. However, what PIOJ is saying that in the state that the economy is in and we're recovering, even at a faster pace than we anticipate, we have to look at recession more in depth. We can't just say, okay, 2 consecutive decline of contract economy is just automatically a recession. Then the context that we're currently in. And the strict economy is not new. You're already likely felt it. Slower business, less overtime, the return to PIJ is talking about large reconstruction dollars flowing through construction. As it relates to inflation, the 7.5% that we're seeing in July, up from 6.7 in June, second straight month above the Bank of Jamaica's own target rate. What that 7.5% actually means is that it does not mean that prices went up by 7% last month. What it means is that on average, prices are 7.5% higher than a year ago. And right now, that pace is really accelerating. And if inflation ever falls from say 7% to 5%, that still doesn't mean growth got people. It means that they're rising more slowly than before. The prices are actually coming down. It's a different thing altogether. It is rare.
I see. Durant, let me ask you, because
I want to chime in on this because I want to call out the PIOJ for euphemism. Because for me, they are fearing that recession is a dirty word. It's not. I remember last year when we had 2 consecutive decline, they said that no recession. It's a technical recession because while the economy has been slumping, it has been growing quarter over quarter. Did a little research and I note that part of the context of describing a recession, you also look at your confidence in the economy. You also look at growth or lack thereof in employment. Our unemployment has actually gone up. It has actually gone up. When I looked at the data, I am seeing where it is here. I'm seeing where, oh gosh, I missed it. But the fact is, it has gone up. So take that in its totality, and you also look at the fact that the PIOJ projects that we are going to decline in this current quarter, July to September. We are also going to decline in the next quarter. The projection is that growth is for probably the first or second quarter next year. So for me, what is recession? Because it's like your euphemism, you're tinkering around the word. But as far as I'm concerned, you have 3 now projected decline. You have unemployment going up. You have consumer confidence going out the door. So why isn't it not a recession?
Let me ask you, Janelle, based on what was explained, and I guess looking at what Durant is saying as well, will we feel any difference in our pockets?
Right. So if you look at this, we might, as I said, recession, and I do agree with what Durant is saying. Yes, in the technical sense, two consecutive declines is a recession, and a couple of people would have had the same argument when we heard the Minister of Finance came out and defended the position. However, given the context, we have to see sharper and deeper branches to establish what an economic recession is. Yes, in technical terms, that is what we're seeing. And I understand the point, but economists are not just going to jump out and say, oh, we're in a recession. And it's not just about the fact that there's a negative connotation. But yes, we had a rough first half of the year, and inflation is indeed running above the target and rising. Interest rates, though, I must say, they are staying high to fighting. We look at the currency, it's stable, and a funded plan for recovery in construction, that's on the card. So the honest answer is Jamaica. Is Jamaica better off in some parts of the economy than others? Yes. We have to look at each sector contextually to give the greater picture. So yes, I am saying that we might see increases in prices of grocery moving forward, or electricity and utilities. That is indeed a must, given the context that we're in.
What role does the West and Melissa play in all of this? Based on your analysis of the numbers given, is Melissa a big chunk of this, or was this going to happen anyway based on the trends?
Yes, we have to agree that Hurricane Melissa would have put us in a very unfortunate position. And given that the spending that is taking, especially into the crop, that has contributed largely to the higher prices that we're seeing. And we look even ahead for what was happening with unstable prices because of war in the Middle East. So yes, Hurricane Melissa is one of the major reasons as to why we're where we're at. As you would have realized, the BOJ would have kept the target for months, and they would have done a tremendous job in that area, and that is even why many persons are saying that Dr. Langren's biggest job today is keeping inflation within the target and getting it back where it was.
We must also bear in mind that Hurricane Melissa came when we were just recovering from Beryl. We had just started to recover from Beryl, and then we got hit with Melissa.
Yep. Let me go to the next story, the Status of Forces Agreement. Yeah, that being signed by Jamaica and the United States. Durant, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts, anything that seeks to put a damper in international criminality is good for me. My issue has to do with reciprocity, which I don't think we have the capacity to negotiate with the American to make sure that there is reciprocity. I look at the fact that we have been making some massive drug hauls at our ports based on investment in technology, investment in capacity, tools, personnel, etc. I'm saying why I don't see that concomitant expectation or reality from the American government. We have arsenal of weapons that keep coming through their ports to our ports. But I don't know what they are doing to put a damper there, but yet still they seek to command that we put our best efforts at hand in securing our borders, that they are not used as transit.
When you say you're not seeing it, is it that you know that they are just laissez-faire? Because, let's be frank, they have more resources, they have more technology. So to say that they haven't been doing anything without knowing as a fact,
because
or that we're doing more than them.
I am not hearing the information, I'm not hearing the data, I'm not seeing the visuals about guns, arms being suppressed at your sport destined for the Caribbean, i.e. Jamaica.
You believe that the agreement should be made public, as in the terms of the agreement?
I do agree. I do agree. But as I say, I don't want to detract from the fact that it is a good move. My only concern, reciprocity.
This actually lands in the same period as expanded U.S. development finance engagement in the region. Are we seeing a coordinated push, you think, as to, what Jamaica has been asked for in exchange?
I see Jamaica being asked for a lot, but I don't know what we're asking from the other parties.
Really? Jenny, do you share that view?
No, I don't. I think a lot is happening, and this is how democracy works. And with Jamaica being a small player, not everything you in the media. But I do agree with the transparency being necessary, especially with the agreement, because one of the issues I have with the agreement, but I do understand how the negotiation takes place. Not everything will come in public, especially with Jamaica being a small island and doesn't have the muscle to flex like the US. And the technical heart of the offer is jurisdiction. And if something goes wrong, whose laws apply? And typically these arrangements, they draw a line based on whether an act happened in the course of, for example, official military duty, and set out which gets first right to prosecute in different situations. And because this has not been published in the full legal text, that is what I'm looking forward to hear some of the critics. However, I must say that there are certain issues that is happening in Jamaica and certain agreements that will not be made public, certain, let me say, exercises that are taken. No, that some of it will not come in the media just right off the bat. And I can say that because I work in certain areas where these things are happening, and you can't just come out and say it, because under certain conditions, the US might just pull back some agreement or issue some sanctions or tariffs. And you would have seen what's happening in, for example, Canada as of recent, with 50% tariff and about approximately $20 million worth of goods. We have to be mindful about that, Mr. Durant.
I am. I know that the David and Goliath syndrome. But I look at I recall the shipwright agreement whereby American could board Jamaican vessels in international waters, even Jamaican waters. I don't think there is any reciprocity of our local agents doing the same for any American vessels in whether local waters or international waters. That's what I'm talking about. Why can't we have people manned at some ports in America to ensure that there is some advanced attention being given to what comes out of American ports that arrive in our Jamaican ports?
You know that as it relates to these vessels and military vessels especially, when they come into our waters, then they're given privileges when they enter our space. And I do understand why they don't want to be in this contentious kind of communication or this back and forth with them. And this is still a case. Normally, in normal circumstances, our crew members on military vessels would have had certain tasks to board any vessel, and we can. It's not just even military. Certain officers within the country have the privilege to board and search any vessel under the Aliens Act and the Immigration Restriction for Commonwealth Citizens Act. So immigration officers can board and search any vessels. However, certain things are not practiced just to avoid contention. So those things are laws, Mr. Durant, that give immigration officers, in particular, the right to board and search any vessel arriving or any port in Jamaica, whether official or unofficial.
My demand is not contentious. It's just a demand for reciprocity.
I hear you.
That's
Durant.
it.
I hear you. So you're saying, we should be able to do our exercises with them in their territory.
In consultation and in cooperation with your local agents.
Well, I guess we get to ask the experts on that. But I'm of the view that it will just never be public. It will just never be public under the rationale of national security. It's always the easiest thing to claim in any event.
Under the rationale of this government. Because we have been seeing quite a lot of agreements being made in the interests of the people, but the people never get to see
But
the
to be fair,
details.
it's not indigenous to this government. It's
True,
happened
true.
across administrations.
True.
From I've been following governance, public governance. It's happened right across the board. Different governments invoke reasons of national security, or to some extent, sometimes they even say it is sensitive information
That's true, but
that is being
the
negotiated.
trend
and
is
cannot,
what's
you know.
concerning.
Fair. Well, that's all the time we have for that. We go for the break.
Every great project starts at Creative Building Finishes, Jamaica's only choice for the best tiles, best bathrooms, and best kitchens. Whether you're designing, building, renovating, or selecting materials for your next project, we offer exceptional quality, standout designs, and expert guidance you can trust. Visit our showroom in Kingston or Draxall, or explore our full range online at www.creativebuildingfinishes.com. Creative Building Finishes, your beautiful finish begins here.
Make money now with local City and Guilds and ABE endorsed certificates and Distinction College. Start new online and face-to-face classes very soon in our Make Money Now career courses and get qualified jobs worldwide, or start your own business in practical pediatric, geriatric, and psychiatric nursing, phlebotomy and pharmacy technician, early childhood education, child care, cashiering, call center, event planning, receptionist, customer service, housekeeping, waitering, food preparation, bartending, cake baking, plumbing, motor vehicle, electrical installation, air conditioning, makeup, hairdressing, nail technician, and cosmetology. No subjects required, no age limit. Register this week and get City and Guilds Maths and English classes for free. Call us at 3564167.
We need a bigger office where we can see more clients. Sounds like ambition is calling and Access Financial Services is answering. The funds are waiting.
Boss, this can't hold on one truck, you know.
I know. We need another truck. Sounds like you have a plan and Access Financial Services can help. Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services designed for women entrepreneurs to unlock the capital you need to grow and take your business beyond limits. With quick approval, flexible repayment, and low interest rates, your success is on the horizon.
If you love the vibes, the laughs, and the real talk, then you're one of us. Don't just listen, belong. Join the nationwide 90 FM Family Club on Patreon.
It's time for that segment we call Movers and Shakers, and in this segment today, the focus is on managing public sector wages in a contracting economy. Of course, on the heels of the discussion we had just now in our overview of the top stories of the week, the latest data from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, the PIOJ, show that the economy contracted by 2.9% in the April to June quarter, a lingering effect, they say, of Hurricane Melissa. The contracting economy landscape is a setting for the current round of negotiation between sector unions, public sector unions, and the government. How do we manage public sector wages in a contracting economy? Serious question. To help us in answering that question, we are joined by Deputy Dean and Senior Lecturer in the Department of Economics at UWI-Mona, Dr. Christine Clark. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon, Saeed. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for joining me. Good.
Yes.
Well, first of all, Doc, the wages, public sector wages, it absorbs roughly half of every single dollar of revenue that the government earns. Is that sustainable in a shrinking economy?
Well, I think your listeners and yourself would know the answer to that question. And the answer, on the face of it would be no. Of course, that has to be understood within the context that these wage changes have come under. If you recall, there were several series of wage freezes as well as hiring freezes across the public sector. And so what we're seeing now is what they call in essence the catch-up. They attempt to regularize or restore to public sector workers many of whom would have advanced themselves technically, experientially, maybe gone and gotten experiences abroad. And so in recognition of all of that, the desire to have better public services, higher productivity, we know the challenges we have there. the government, I think, had no choice but to recognize all of those, and in the context of the brain drain, try to facilitate changes that would, one, regularize. I know we knew of all of the salary scales and the bands and the allowances to make public sector payroll more efficient and transparent, and also clearer to understand across the public sector.
$42 billion, they say, Doc, has been set aside in the budget for contingencies. And the identifiable obligations that the government has, those wages come up to about $36 billion before the one-time $80,000 lump sum payment that is due to public sector workers for 2025, 2026 March, April to March. Is that provision enough to your mind? And what are these contingencies that they speak of?
Well, contingencies rarely are anything that have an impact on the budget in the long run, including, of course, any natural disasters that we may experience or any other shock that may require a government-wide response that couldn't be addressed only by private sector activity. The challenge, as I indicated, Saeed, that we have is the ever-present threat, and, I've seen the commentary in relation to the teachers and them pointing out and reminding the government of what they're referencing as unfulfilled promises from the compensation review with respect to uniforms, etc., is the ever-present threat of other locations, other countries in which these highly skilled professional groups can migrate to, and in essence cause potential disruptions in our own public sector entities, most notably, of course, within our schools. We're just upon the back to school time, as well as, of course, within the hospital healthcare system. So it really is a balancing act. I mean, how do you calibrate compensation based on a proper mapping of jobs and job families and how these all relate? You don't want a lot of arbitrage against different groups. You want persons in jobs with qualifications that are calibrated for that particular job, generating the output, not to mention the customer service that we all aspire for when we go to various institutions of government. How do you do that with improvements in technology, working conditions, the physical plants? All of that will make a call, as you indicated at the outset of this interview, on that tax dollar. How do you calibrate it all so that we can get the optimal result in terms of public sector productivity to complement what we know we need, which is the private sector-led productivity and growth, to generate even more returns, higher rates of economic growth, higher innovation, and therefore a better quality of life for all of us in the aggregate. That really is the challenge that is faced by that unit in the Ministry of Finance, to really get a handle and provide that kind of intellectual and thought leadership as to how to program for something like that.
Do you think, because you mentioned just now that teachers, for example, they could go abroad. I've been at Nationwide now for 4 years, Dr. Clark.
Yes.
And every single August,
we
run the same story. Oh, teacher shortage, potential teacher shortage. We might not have enough teachers to start in September. And then September comes, October comes, and the school year is running fine.
Right.
We don't have empty classrooms. So with that in mind, is it really just a ploy to try and get as much from the government as possible? And keeping in mind now, we know this, we know it's a cycle, but we're also low on government revenue. Yeah?
Yes.
How do they go about this? Or are we just looking at giving them what they want and a potential additional tax package?
Well, in the wake of Hurricane Beryl and Hurricane Melissa, the challenges we have elsewhere geopolitically, and even in the context of the migration, because just in preparing for this, as looking at, the traditional markets that our teachers and nurses go to, they're not as sanguine as they used to be before in relation to international workers coming in. Yes, they may take them, and then when they get there, as we've seen in our own media, it's a different scenario because of, nuances, or perhaps it is the fine print that maybe was not broadcasted at the outset. And what we're seeing is that many of these programs are now basically projectizing this hiring. In other words, yes, you can come for a period of time, after which you have to return to your country. So it really depends on where in skilled professionals' life cycle or their career that they're making this leap, and what are the potential other opportunities that they're looking to maybe leapfrog into after such a period has ended. You may think it's a ploy, and I mean, the truth is the role of a trade union is to do trade union work, which, it comes in many shapes and forms. One of the things we have to be careful about, even if we think it is so, is that yes, the classrooms may not be empty, but again, there could be a negative impact on the work effort. So persons are present and they are doing, but then when you look at, the overall performance, you realize that maybe there are changes, or, it leads to some level of unease within the professions that we need to provide these results for children, for elderly, or for even us. If something happens, an accident, you have no option but to go to a hospital or to see a medical professional. You want the best from that professional, and that is the kind of trade-off, again, going back to the productivity issue.
Duane Pitt, an analyst here on my show, he has a burning question to ask.
I wanted, you mentioned, thanks, Zach. You mentioned about tax package, so it just drew my thought. The economy is declining. The government had projected 10%, 7% over 3 years. They have gone 10% plus. They added $800,000, and my calculation at $120,000 in the public sector. That's already $8.8 billion. And what was set aside in the contingency was just for year one. So consider year two. Consider the declining environment. Consider the rise in public sector salaries. Don't you foresee, or how do you navigate those reality without putting a tax package come next year?
Well, if it's going to be focused only on the expenditure side, then the chances are, and this is what we've been trying to avoid, having been there for maybe a decade or so between the early 2000s and, early 2010s, is reductions in capital expenditure, or perhaps through administrative measures. So we're not reducing, but we're just not necessarily advancing the infrastructure projects and the other things. I mean, when you think about where we are now in terms of the drought, I heard you talking about the weather and all of those things. The water infrastructure is now critical. We see the challenges that continue with the grid, and the perhaps stickiness or stubbornness of our households to be able to transition to solar or other renewables to support that general and overall thrust towards reduced electricity costs. So if we're going to focus on the expenditure side, in essence, what we'd be looking at is either recasting or a reallocation, either within our sectors or across sectors. On the revenue side, chances are it is going to be more effort in terms of tax efficiency. The collection efforts may be ramped up to see how better we can integrate the data sources from customs all the way through to the retail sales, to see if there is more that we can collect from those activities. That would be the only other way I could see, or ways that I could see this happening from a public finance view.
And I could add that the revenue collections are down $28 billion.
Right. So
with all that in mind, don't you foresee the likelihood of a tax package for 2027-28?
Well, we had one this year that I'm not sure that all of the aspects of it have been implemented. There was quite a bit of pushback, I recall, in relation to our sugar tax. there were other queries in relation to the other elements that the minister presented, but I'm sure it is not going to be off the table from our tax policy analysts at the Ministry of Finance to be thinking about how else can they basically constitute a tax revenue base that can generate some wiggle room for the government to duly respond to the queries and the advancement. I think one of the major challenges that the unions had was the suspension of the increments and the rewards that you get once you acquire further education.
Yes.
And I think that's back on. I mean, it's hard to say, you've moved up, but we're not going to give you a commensurate move in salary, which is something that perhaps it's a cultural thing. But certainly it's part of expectations, and we know expectations of government can fuel a lot of discontent when they're not honored. So it will be a lot of management. I think there will be a lot more effort at the port to see how if there are any efficiencies that can be gained from an administrative point of view. I think they will try to exhaust those in the first instance. But certainly as we get into October and the budget call and cabinet retreats in January, there will be, have to be quite an honest look. We pray we'll get through the remainder of this hurricane season without any hit at all, whether major or minor, because, we in Kingston, what is minor to us can be devastating for the rest of the country. So there are a lot of variables as a result, I agree with you.
Doc, let me bowl this final one to you before you go, because with all, and I love the fact that you've laid the pitch for this question, because you basically told us what the realities are. Yes, the size of the country's wage bill, compared or in contrast with the situation that you've just outlined, does it make a compelling argument for a cap measured against government revenue or GDP for public sector wages? Doc? Oh, God. Please get her back. Please get her back. Please get her back. Because... pardon? Wait. Oh, yeah. We're going to try and get her back. Because with what the situation that she just outlined, Durant, I think it's important. We still have Janelle on the line as well? The situation that we just outlined with all the realities, the economic realities of the country, but... increasing public sector wage bill. It's a serious question to ask. Doc, you're back with us, Dr.
I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what happened. Yes, I'm back.
That's fine. Did you hear the question?
No, not at all.
Let me repeat. I have no problem repeating it for you, Doc. I said before asking this question that you had just laid out perfectly to my mind the situation at hand economically in the country with everything that has been happening. Compare that with the ballooning size of the country's wage bill. With what you've said, and with the current state of the country's public sector wage bill and the continuing negotiations, the JTA just turned down an offer, does it make a compelling argument for a cap for public sector wage bill compared or measured against government revenue or GDP?
Well, yes. I mean, it's not necessarily that we're going to put in a kind of administrative cap. I think what the discussion going forward with the public sector unions have to acknowledge, both on the government side and the trade union side and their stakeholders, is that neither permanent wage suppression nor continued compensation increases not related to the economic performance, neither of those are sustainable, and they're not going to solve our problem, right? What we really need is to, in addition to our focus on the productivity and the enhancements therein and better output, we have to focus on a better organization of the public service. There probably is going to have to be, again, a new, maybe a revised discussion on how do we provide, if it is necessary, targeted but effective professional retention. We know we need a public service that is staffed by technically sound, customer-oriented, country-focused public servants. We know that. How do we retain them That doesn't mean they won't migrate for a time and come back perhaps. But how do we retain persons? Is it about only the salary, or are there the other things that we try to aim for when we say to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise family, and do business? What would make them stay? And then we can't forget, as we were thrust into Hurricane Melissa last year, we have to make sure our economy is disaster resilient. So it's not that we're going to get not going to get any shocks, which although that's what we're praying for, but whatever it is, we need to have our mechanism and our structures and our infrastructure so designed that we are resilient to the impact of the shock.
So at the risk of repeating yourself, Doc, I just want to be clear. Are you for a cap measured against revenue or GDP or not?
I don't know that we're at the point we can put a cap now, because as I said before, we're still in the process of helping our public sector workers recover from about a decade of wage suppression.
Okay.
So it's a difficult balance. I'm not sure we can put a cap now, but I think the discussions have to have at the center of their mind that neither extreme of permanent wage suppression, continuous necessarily, administrative adjustments, or just continuous increases in salary, neither of those extremes are sustainable. We have to find that middle road, and it's not just about wages. Other social issues are going to play an increasing role, especially at the higher, perhaps more experienced end of the public sector salary scale.
Got you. Thank you so much, Dr. Christine Clark, for joining me, Deputy Dean and Senior Lecturer in the Department of Economics at UWI Mona. Thank you so much, Doc.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Good. Up next, Duran's favorite segment, winners and losers.
School expenses adding up? Get ready for school with Chris and Charles. From July 9 to August 31, enjoy a low interest rate on loans of $1.5 and $2 million. Plus, get 25% off the processing fee on loans of $1 million Jamaican dollars and above. You could also qualify for one of 50 ready for school grants worth 60,000 Jamaican dollars each. Visit your nearest Chris and Charles branch or www.chrisandcharles.com for details. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles. Conditions apply.
Path beneficiaries, the August payment cycle is here and ready for collection. Post offices and payment agencies will deliver payments based on last names up to September 1, 2026. Be sure to check the Weekend Star on August 21st to find out when you should collect. If you miss your date, you must collect on September 2 or 3, 2026. For more information, call Path at 876-922-8000-13 or visit the ministry's website at www.mlss.gov.jm. Path, advancing your family, developing Jamaica. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the People's Ministry, leaving no one behind.
Welcome back to The Week That Was, your program that reviews the major stories of the past week and take an informed look at what lies ahead. We're almost at the end of the show, but before we end, we have to take what we call our winners and losers. And so I'm going to ask Durant and Janelle who their picks are for losers first, then winner, and why. So I'm going to start with you, Janelle. Who is your loser of the week?
I'd say the clear loser is the World. And I want to resist the instinct to really to file that under seasonal inconvenience, because we have reservoirs are at 40 and 54% road pressure, and that Med Service could run into next year, and a direct link Bank of Jamaica itself has drawn jump in rising food prices. And that is not just noise. It's a live threat to household or budgets, to agriculture, public health, and arguably to every economic recovery PIGOJ is banking on. So for the last quarter of this year, you cannot rebuild an economy on the foundation that's from underneath. So the loser for me is the water security.
Okay. You, Durant, loser for you this week.
The loser for me is the Jamaican economy. 3 consecutive quarters of contraction. We don't project growth until next year. However, on the optimistic side, I note the fact that the contraction has been slowing down, but a contraction nonetheless.
Okay. And winner for you, Janelle. Your winner of the week.
Well, I'd say that on land revaluation, that for me is a very important step for the ordinary Jamaican. And we see where our institutions have been getting better. But I also want to say that land revaluation of parcels, it only becomes a win for the Jamaican safeguards or people. So that for me, when I heard the announcement, it was great news for landowners because, as you know, people hold on to land because of they speculate the value will continue to increase. So paying more for it, I don't think it will essentially be a problem if you have to pay more for something that the value is increasing. What I'd say in an exponential manner. So that for me was a big win.
Okay. And you, Durant?
The winner for me is the education system.
What about it?
Delivering a much more improved performance this year about. Albeit we had to suffer through both parents, teachers and students through Miss Melissa. The teachers and the parents with the kids with those tilly lamps at night. Remember, they had no electricity, none whatsoever. So for me, it's a remarkable improvement, and I salute the teachers, the parents, as well as the children. And I also note that there was some assistance from an administrative level because there was some adjustment in the, the project that you get at the end. SBA. So I also note that as well, that there was some administrative support.
Well, you know what I'll say to that, Durant? The phenomenon that our children, did well during Melissa, resilience, it's not new. It's not new. Outside of hurricane scope and the damages thereof, many children across the length and breadth of this country go through those conditions day after day, year after year, and still perform well, So I am not surprised that our children have done well. It should be celebrated, but I'm not surprised at all. Very, pertinent winner if you ask me. And I can say that because I remember when I used to live in Kingston.
With a tilly lamp.
And I love the scent of kerosene because of that. Light gone, frankly speaking, couldn't afford to pay the bill. Light gone, and you have the, pour the kerosene and you have the tail in the kerosene lamp.
Tilly lamp.
Tilly lamp, yeah man. And sometimes if you turn it up too much, the shade get black and you have to wipe it off. And you have to turn it up at the right amount so the shade don't get black, but you can see enough. And my mother would sit up with me. She never left me until I'm finished with my homework. Yeah. So knowing those experiences, hurricane come and it was horrible. Our students are resilient. And Jamaicans, generally speaking, are resilient people. That display really and truly is the product of our resilience. But I agree with those winners, and I agree with Janelle's winners as well. The land re-evaluation exercise, that will solve some problems as well. Speaking of land. Well, gentlemen, what are you looking forward to the week ahead? We don't just look at the past week, but we want to have a view as to what lies in the week ahead. Janelle, for you?
Well, as it relates to so far, I'm looking forward to more information because there will be more questions being asked. And Mr. Grant made mention to, these kind of arrangements happening. Ship Rider agreement a decade ago where, the coordinate was the same. How much operational latitude does a foreign secretary get in our own territory, our own waters, and what happens in Jamaican legal jurisdiction when it does. We also just watched that, the third country tried this arrangement earlier this year, how much public frustration can build up from this agreement in Washington, and the full text is not made. So that for me is what I'm looking for. More about these kind of agreements because I believe that the government wants to be transparent as best as they can without revealing too much because put the deal in jeopardy.
Okay, and for you, Durant?
With the experience of this new SOFA deal, I'm expecting to see and hear something more about the third country national. The minister promised that they will speak with their partners in America with a view of sharing more information on the TCN agreement that was signed.
Very well. Oh, well, in the past week, it's clear that water, or the lack thereof, is on people's minds. The prohibition orders have been in effect and the fines, $1,000. But is it enough to really deter people? At the end of the day, government has to do what it has to do in order to try as best as possible to secure a very scarce commodity these days. You would think it's oil, but no, it's water. And so that, to my mind, dominated last week's news cycle. But looking to the week ahead, of course, we want updates on the drought and the possibility of meaningful rainfall. Of course, in a lighter side, the Jamaica Kingsmen, they continue to play CPL cricket.
Note I did mention them.
Lost to St. Lucia on Friday. We're hoping they can make a comeback this week. And of course, most pertinent, the return to school. Are our schools ready? Especially the schools out there in the west that were damaged by Hurricane Melissa. And if they're not ready, what provisions are being made for them to have a strong restart to the school week? The JTA, that's the organization, the union for the teachers, they have rejected an offer. Updates, I imagine, will be coming from that, especially going into September. Strike action? Hopefully not. But a lot remains to be seen there. And of course, the economy and cost of living, that continues to be on the lips of many people, because you might be hearing inflation quarter after quarter, month after month, but what does it mean for you in your pockets, especially coinciding with back to school? Anyways, I'll whisper that part because I'm hoping that it's good news. Until next time, I am really hoping that we manage and that we have good news coming into the next week. That's today's episode of The Week That Was. Special thanks to my panelists today, veteran journalist Durant Pate and economic consultant, researcher and social commentator Janelle McEwan. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me. And of course, special thanks to the man behind the controls, Damian Cunningham, to my producer, Cara Powell, and of course to all of you who make the show possible, our sponsors, our viewers, and of course, now leave out the YouTubers, never that, yeah? Pick up yourself, YouTubers. It has been my pleasure being here with you today. I am Saeed Bernard, and I'm encouraging you to take care, walk good, until next week, 12 o'clock, where we do it all over again. Bye-bye.